know, and we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
For a unique review here on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. Hi, this is Mr. Green, and they are the gorgeous ladies of wrestling. Well, kind of. We're going to be talking about the Netflix series, which I kind of sat on for a little while. I watched I watched actually the full season of it when it released. So it's not like I haven't seen it. I mean, this thing has been a long time coming. And in fact, I actually did an episode-by-episode review, or at least I started to. I think I got about 5 episodes in of doing it, and this is all audio that's just kind of sitting on the hard drive, and I changed my mind about it. So I don't want to have to go through episode by episode. Let's just do it all at one time. You know, so let's just knock out the entirety of G.L.O.W, the series, all at once here. So that is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to talk about the 2017, I don't think we can call it a sitcom. We'll just say the updated series of G.L.O.W, which is starring Alison Brie, comedian Marc, Maron, Betty Gilpin, and Kia Stevens. I was about to blank out on the name, but we know her as Awesome Kong. She is the one wrestler that is on it. And if you've watched that show, you might have been like me, because I was looking at it originally. I was like, man, where do I know this chick from? I know her from something, but I can't remember what. And I think by episode 3, it finally hit me. It was like, that's Kong. But she didn't walk, talk, act, or do anything. Like, in fact, she did a good job of kind of playing up not knowing how to wrestle, which is, kind of surprising. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're going to just get into the bulk of the series. But before the series in and of itself, because I'm sure you've heard a lot of people kind of carry on and say, man, this show is great. The series is good. You need to watch it, this, that, and the other. There's been a lot of reviews that have gone in about G.L.O.W as it is right now, and I'm not going to dispute that. The series is good. It is, it is very entertaining. I enjoyed everybody and all the characters and so on and so forth. But I will say this, and I will put this out there even for the writers. If it get back to them and whatnot, I think that a lost component in this resurgence of the popularity of G.L.O.W is one thing that's left out is the documentary that existed about G.L.O.W. Well, I guess that was about 3 years ago now. I want to say it's about 3 years ago. No, it's actually longer than that. G.L.O.W, the story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, is the name of the documentary, for those that are wondering what it is I'm talking about. But that came out in 2012. And it's a really good documentary. So, I think it is, kind of a lost thing in the chapters that's been kind of put out about G.L.O.W right now, because a lot of that is being placed on the series, revitalizing G.L.O.W, and people wanting to go back and watch the original wrestling show that took place back in the 80s, the old campy TV show that was happening back then. But I think you got to go and you have to look at G.L.O.W, the story of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, the documentary. Again, that took place in 2012, directed by Brett Whitcomb. And it's a really good documentary. And I bring that up because it probably inadvertently acts as a really good companion piece to the Netflix series G.L.O.W. So what you have here, and I'm talking about both of them right now, if you watch the documentary first, and then you go off into the G.L.O.W series, you'll see some of these stories that the ladies were talking about in the documentary, the actual G.L.O.W wrestlers that are somewhat reenacted in the 2017 series. One of them was the, and I can't remember who was telling the story. I know Mondo Guerrero was telling one half of it because he was the trainer at the time for the ladies. And during this story, he was basically saying that one of the girls wasn't taking it seriously. She just treating it like a big joke, and this stuff is ha ha, and and ain't that big a deal. This, that, and the other, and fake, and blah blah blah. The stuff that people would always say about wrestling. And long story short, he put her to sleep. During one of the training exercises, he told he had her come out there on the mat. He locked in a sleeper and knocked her out. Now, if you've heard that story in the documentary and then you go and you watch the series, you see the same thing take place. Only difference is that they assign the character roles of who's doing what. So you got little things like that, and I think it will make the series that much more enjoyable for you if you see the documentary first. There are multiple characters that are going on here, so you don't just have a and a B storyline. You probably got a C and a D storyline going on. You got Marc Maron's character who's I forget the person that he's based off of. His character name is Sam Silver, but he's basically the fallen director that's looking to make a comeback, so to speak. Pretty gruff character, a straight shooter, so on and so forth. But he's doing this show in order to secure a movie, which they have a running theme with him in this movie, and that I guess I would say how terrible it is, but it all kind of ties in at the end. Particularly a situation that he gets himself into as it relates to. And let me before I even continue, let me just start saying this review is full of spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, you probably don't need to hear this. So you've been warned. Spoilers are ahead. Anyway, the Sam Silver character, like I said, throughout the course of the series, is kind of peppered in there. This weird idea that he has for a movie, and it's got a weird name. It's like Mothers and Lovers. And by the time he actually gets to the point where he's telling somebody about the movie in full, one of the guys is like, yeah, I saw that movie. It's called Back to the Future. And it just kind of blew his mind. But the tie-in there is that they actually kind of foreshadow this unintentional incestuous relationship when he hits on his own daughter, largely because he doesn't know that is his own daughter. So anyway, it's weird. You'd have to watch it to really get the gist of all of that. I know I'm kind of playing that out, but another one of the big things in G.L.O.W is the relationship or the caricatures of the people in the show and who they would be relative to in the original G.L.O.W series, where you have a Ruth character with his played by Alison Brie, who eventually goes on to be the dastardly Russian on the series, which I think we can say that's played up as like a Colonel Nanishka with the over the top accent and all that stuff. You got a character that's pretty much the equivalent of Americana. You got Carmen. I forget what her character name is, but she's almost like the Mount Fiji. And so on and so forth. I mean, I don't need to go down the line, but you get the idea that they have their counterparts on from the actual show. I think Melrose is probably the most spot on character that you're going to get on that show. Melrose comes off like a hybrid of Hollywood and Vine from the original series, with the look and the hair and the outfit that she wears and all that stuff like that. And I can only imagine if one of them, if not both, were like her behind the scenes. So anyway, we won't go off on that. So the series in and of itself, the main plot, like I said, there's a B and there's a C and there's probably a D and E plot. But the main plot here is that you have Alison Brie's character, who's Ruth Wilder, and she's best friends with Debbie. I can't remember her last name right now. And she being Ruth, makes a bad decision and sleeps with her best friend's husband, assumably out of being depressed and all that stuff like that, because that's what they play it up as, which creates this tension between them throughout the course of the series. Because on the one hand, you have Ruth, who really wants to be an actress, and she's not doing very well at it. She hears about G.L.O.W. She tries to do that, and she's initially kind of pushed off to the side for that. But she comes back, and she's really trying her best to get this gig, because she, even though she wasn't really that high on it to begin with, she goes home and does like basically wrestling homework, and she, for lack of a better term, falls in love with it. But the director, Sam, still doesn't want her until he sees her being confronted by her former best friend right there in the ring. And then he goes into this fantasy of seeing them wrestling in his mind in these glittery outfits and with a crowd cheering on and this, that, and the other. And he knows right then, it's like, okay, I got my top baby face, I got my top heel. And so now the task is, how do we get these two to cooperate and get together and do this job and work out the series when Debbie, at this point, hates Ruth. The Debbie character is the actual actress of the bunch. So since within her world, she was on the soap opera, and that kind of got cut short. She put her life on hold for her husband to give him a baby and take care of the family, and she didn't act anymore. And now she's kind of getting the acting itch again. She's talked into doing wrestling, even though she didn't really care for wrestling at first. She kind of goes on a girls' night out with two of the other ladies, and she gets to meet some of the male wrestlers at an actual show, and then he explains it to her, right before they get to banging. But that, again, that's like the B storyline. So you got all these little storylines that are going on and that are tracked through and interwoven between each other. Each character's got the brief opportunity to kind of share who they. I mean, it's not like they literally stood up and say, "Hey, this is who I am," but every episode kind of brings new light to some of these people and what they're doing and what they're all about internally and this, that. So it is really entertaining in that regard. And you also have to take consideration that this show takes place in the 80s. It is it's a timepiece period, I guess. If normally when I think about that, I'm thinking about going back hundreds of years, but it's a period piece because it's 1980, and that's long enough. I mean, what are we talking about? 30 years now. So yeah. So we have that, and because it takes place then you got some things that are going to be arguably less than politically correct. Not that they went out and did something insulting, but because it's the 80s and they're like, okay, you're from Pakistan, and they're playing up the stereotype thing. But these are the things that took place in the 80s at the time. You had big stereotypes. You had if you just looking at G.L.O.W. alone, they had plenty of stereotypes in that. Colonel Danishka, I just brought her up not too long ago. You had Spanish Red, and they all played their stereotypes to the hilt. So you have a variation of that on this show with some of the more ethnic characters. And again, I can't remember their names right now. It's not in front of me. But it is worth going into Netflix if you are a subscriber to Netflix and watching that series. First off, it's a really easy watch. Every episode is about 27 to 28 minutes tops. So it's not like it's going to really stretch out your day. I mean, you can get through this entire series in maybe 2 days. And, if you had like a good solid 2 to 3 hours out of each one of your days back to back, you can knock this thing right on out, which is pretty much what I did. Started watching and knocked it right on out. Didn't find any lag in there whatsoever. Excuse me. And as a wrestling fan, you have a bunch of cameos that are tossed in there. You had, like I said, I already brought up Kia Stevens, who we also know is Awesome Kong. I think the first episode we got Johnny Mundo. He showed up in there. You see Christopher Daniels performing a match in there with Frankie Kazarian. You got Carlito and Tyrus, who are acting as brothers to Carmen, which her storyline is basically, as I said, she's like the equivalent of Mount Fiji. But she's the only person that walks into this show having any sort of relation to wrestling. She is a second generation, or would be second generation wrestler, but her father won't let her do it. She's been forbidden, so she's coming out here trying to sneak and be a wrestler because this is what she really wants to do. So you have that, and probably a few other people that I'm forgetting. I think that's his name. Well, Alex Riley. Alex Riley is in there. In fact, he's the one that Debbie kind of hooks up with when she is explained what wrestling is and what it's all about, and she finds out he's a fan, and he likes her, she likes him, and then they kind of shoo their friends away and go on to doing what they're doing, what grown folks do. So yeah, you got that in there, and I want to say Brooke Hogan popped in. And I didn't even know Brooke Hogan was in that until I read it later, because I didn't recognize her. I know exactly where she was in the series now that I think back on it, but I didn't recognize her at the time that I was watching it. But all of that to say is that it has little Easter eggs for the wrestling fans out there. Probably not so much for anybody that's listening to this that has not been a wrestling fan. If you just listen to this because you're listening to the review, then bravo for you. I hope you get to come back and check out some other stuff on the channel. But it is peppered with little Easter eggs. Even the name of the gym is the Guerrero's Gym, which, of course, is a complete full circle to Mondo Guerrero having trained the original G.L.O.W girl. So you got a lot of, and Chavo was training, although he doesn't make an appearance on screen, but he was training some of the girls too. So you got a lot of little things that are thrown in there that you should find pretty entertaining one way or the other. And in fact, I'm looking forward to the second season. They left a couple of things kind of hanging in the breeze, but that's how TV is. They want to give you a hook and give you something to come back and look at. But it is definitely worth the watch. They have an excellent cast. Like I said, very easy to view from start to finish. It should be quick for you to go through. It's not like some of these other shows that I've been looking at on Netflix. Although being good shows, sometimes I ain't got an hour in my day to sit up there and start watching TV all the time. So this is really refreshing in the fact that, hey, 24 minutes, 25, 28 minutes tops, I'm done. And that's really cool. And I think just seeing the colorfulness of the 80s and kind of remembering what it was and sitting there trying to pick, okay, this person's supposed to be so-and-so and this, that, and the other. That made it fun for me. Like I would say that the Bash character that's on the show is probably very much relative to David McClain, who we now know is running WoW, and he's still doing that. And I got some WoW reviews that I got to crank out, that I got to release. I've done them, but I just haven't put them out there. I don't know why. So all in all, good show, worth the watch. Definitely will be coming back season 2. So there we have it. That is the full G.L.O.W review. And I will reiterate, if you haven't seen the documentary, go watch that documentary first, then watch the series. The documentary does exist on Netflix. They have not removed it yet, so you got an excellent companion piece to watch this show in full so you can understand everything that they were doing and every situation that they brought up, because believe me, there are multiple things within the course of this season 1 that they did that if they didn't borrow it directly from that documentary, they certainly sat down with some of these girls and got the stories from them. So there you go. All right, folks, that is it. Be sure to check out the next podcast when it hits. If you haven't subscribed to this YouTube channel or our various platforms, please do hit the easy for me to say. Let's try that again. Hit the subscribe button wherever you are listening to this, whether that be Podbean, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, or Google Play. Make sure that you subscribe to the show so that when new content goes up, you will know when it is available. And I do try to produce new content. If you are checking this out on YouTube, whether that be the video interviews, the podcast interviews, or podcast reviews such as this, the matches that we put out, you want to hit the subscribe button there as well. Make sure that you hit the little bell that's on YouTube so that you will get the notifications when these things come down. And that should do it. One last thing I also want to kind of put out because of recent associations with the wrestling promotion and school here. If you are a interested party in learning professional wrestling, you want to check out APCW Wrestling Academy, run by Robert Gibson, one half of the Rock and Roll Express, here in Georgia, Douglasville, Georgia, to be specific. And you can learn the craft of pro wrestling from a Hall of Famer, a WWE Hall of Famer. Actually, he's a multiple Hall of Famer. That's just the most recent Hall of Fame that he's been in. So if you want to learn something about what's going on with him, you should check out the school. The number for the school, 770-871-5417. You can go onto their Facebook page. Just go APCW Wrestling Academy. It should come right up. And if you are in the area, they do shows once a month. And they had a really kick-ass show last month. So if you are a wrestling fan, it would have been great for you. If you are somebody that's listening to this solely for the review and you are also in the area, then you probably need to check that out because it's got girls at the shows too. And if you haven't seen a girls match live or even a wrestling match live at all, then you got to come out there. Do like the character did on the show. Do like Debbie did. Go down there and watch that show. And before you pass judgment on it, take a look at it and see what it's all about. Because I can tell you, there's a different feeling when you go there live and you see these people beating the crap out of each other. And I know what you're going to say. That's not real. Look, there's nothing soft about that ring, and you got to be there to really kind of experience that. And the only way that you really get that is at an independent show when you're right up on the ring. Can't get that at a WWE show. As beautiful as they are, and as much pyro and glitz and glamour as they got, you can't really gauge the impact like you can at an indie show, and that's a fact. All right, I've gone on long enough. I do appreciate you taking the time to listen. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you on next podcast. So long, everybody.